This is the Ford Mustang, and if you know anything about cars, you probably already know that this is the first-generation Fox body Mustang, which ran from 1979 to 1993, which means that this car was not the very first Mustang. This is the 1964.5 Mustang, the very first pony car ever made. And if you're thinking, wait a minute, why does it say 1965 right there? Well, this was actually launched mid-production year in April of 1964, so Ford decided to call this the 1964.5 model. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. This is one of my favorite eras of automobiles. I just love these long, low, sleek, almost shark-like designs that we saw during this time period. There's something so cool about them, especially when they have the long hood and short deck like this Mustang has. It's just so iconic, and obviously, this is where the Mustang got its start, and it did so in an incredibly big way. The story of how the Mustang was born is pretty wild, because it was designed by Lee Iacocca himself, who would later go on to become CEO of Chrysler. He was the mastermind behind the creation of the minivan, the K car, the Viper, and the PT Cruiser, among many other incredible vehicles. But here he was working for Ford, and he wanted to create a fun, sporty, affordable car that would appeal to younger buyers, people who were not interested in the typical large American sedans or even the small European sports cars that were available at the time. He says that he was inspired to make this car after seeing the reaction of young people to the Ferrari 250 GT California that was featured in the 1963 movie For a Few Dollars More, aka the second movie in the Dollars trilogy starring Clint Eastwood. Said the muscle car was envisioned as the poor man's Ferrari. Iacocca had previously been involved in the development of the Ford Thunderbird, but found that it was too expensive to be considered a mass-market vehicle. He thought that there was a gap in the market for a more affordable sports car that would appeal to younger buyers. So he started sketching out his ideas and came up with a design that would become known as the Mustang. Now, despite the fact that this was obviously designed by an American company, you can see some clear influences from European sports cars, specifically the British. You can see some clear inspiration from the AC Ace and the Austin Healey, both of which were roadsters. You can also see some influence from the Volkswagen Karmann Ghia, which was a popular choice for young people at the time. But what really sets the Mustang apart is the fact that it was designed to be affordable. The base price was only $2,368, which was about half the price of a Ford Thunderbird. That made it much more accessible to young buyers who did not have a lot of money to spend. It was also available with a variety of engines and options that allowed customers to customize their cars to their liking. They could choose between a 2.8-liter inline-six, a 260 cubic inch Windsor V8, or the 289 cubic inch Windsor V8, which put out 230 horsepower. You could get a manual or an automatic transmission. There was a convertible option as well as a fastback coupe. And the Mustang was also available with various options such as air conditioning, a premium sound system, and a sunroof. But perhaps the most important thing about the Mustang is that it was designed to be fun to drive. It wasn't meant to be practical or super fuel efficient, just saying. It was meant to be a pure sports car that would allow young people to enjoy the thrill of driving. The Mustang was unveiled in April of 1964, and it was an instant hit. People lined up to buy the new car, and dealers were caught off guard by the huge demand. In the first 2 days alone, Ford sold over 22,000 Mustangs, and by the end of the first week, in fact, there was such a rush to get the new car that some dealers were selling the Mustang before it even arrived at the dealership. They were taking customer orders and then just writing checks for the difference based on what the car was going for on the open market. Word got around that the Mustang was super popular, and suddenly everyone wanted one. Ford couldn't keep up with the demand, and they were struggling to produce enough Mustangs to satisfy their customers, so some shady things started happening. Some unscrupulous dealers started marking up the prices of the Mustang and selling it for much more than the MSRP, Other dealers were even selling the Mustang for parts and then delivering the parts to the customer instead of an actual assembled car. Ford tried to put a stop to this, but it was difficult because they were in such high demand. Eventually, they were able to get production back on track, and the Mustang became one of the best-selling cars in America. By the end of the first year, over 418,000 Mustangs had been sold, and it was clear that Ford had created a star. Over the next few years, the Mustang would become one of the most popular cars in America, and it would spawn a whole new genre of affordable sports cars. General Motors would introduce the Chevrolet Camaro in 1966, which was essentially a Mustang competitor. Over the next few years, the Mustang would become one of the most popular cars in America, and it would spawn a whole new genre of affordable sports cars. And then Chrysler would follow suit with the Plymouth Barracuda, which was later renamed to the Challenger. The Mustang was such a cultural phenomenon that it transcended the automotive world. It became a symbol of youth culture and rebellion, and it was featured in countless movies, TV shows, and commercials. It was the car that every young person wanted to drive, and it was the car that parents feared their kids would drive. The Mustang's success was due to a number of factors. First, it was affordable. With a base price of less than $3,000, the Mustang was within reach of young buyers who did not have a lot of money to spend. Second, it was fun to drive. The Mustang was not intended to be a practical or fuel-efficient vehicle. It was meant to be a pure sports car that would allow young people to enjoy the thrill of driving. Third, it was customizable. Customers could choose between a variety of engines and options that allowed them to customize their cars to their liking. They could choose between a manual or an automatic transmission, a convertible or a fastback, and a number of other options that allowed them to make the car their own. They could choose between a manual or an automatic transmission, a convertible or a fastback, and a number of other options that allowed them to make the car their own. The Mustang was a huge success for Ford, and it remains one of the most popular cars in America today. It was the car that started it all, the car that gave birth to the pony car segment, and the car that defined an era. If you had a blast watching this video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps out. If you want to see more videos like this, click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our new content. I'll see you guys in the next one.